Hi, welcome back to the workshop for episode 3 of the Esquire / Telecaster refurbishment build. And after stripping all the finish off the body and the neck last week, this time we're going to concentrate on getting the repairs done on the neck. And the first of them is this little horror story here. Basically what happened is I chipped out a little bit of the maple when I was putting the fret marker in, and I tried to fill it with some glue and dust, and it's just far too dark. So I've got a little chip of maple that's about the right size for that. So I'm going to splice that in. Hopefully we'll get a nice join and you won't be able to see it. And then once it's lacquered, it'll all disappear. But the first thing I need to do is to just remove the old fret marker so we've got a bit of room to work. And I'm just going to start off by drilling this out with a 4mm drill bit. And then slowly open it out to the right size. And with that removed, I'm just then going to take a little chisel and chip out that old glue and dust filling that I put in. And then with that done, I'm just going to try my little bit of maple, and it's a little bit on the fat side, and that's not a bad thing because there's actually a dark edge on there which I want to take off. So just trim that down ever so slightly. Try it again. It's still a little on the fat side, so I'll just get this into the vise as best I can for this tiny little slither. And I'm just going to take this tiny little plane and that one little shaving is about done it. But to make sure it goes in nicely, I'm just going to give that a few taps with this little hammer. And I'm tapping that, so I'm just creating a little bit of a wedge shape, so hopefully that will slot in nice and firmly. And what I'm hoping is going to happen is when I glue this in place, the moisture from the glue will kind of make this swell out again, and that will make it a really nice tight fit. So I just need to trim this more like the size we need. And I need to take this past the centre of this hole so that once it's glued in position and trimmed down, I can actually re-drill this to the 6mm that we need. Okay, so we need to set that aside to dry now, but while that's happening we can address the boo-boo here on the headstock where I positioned the string tree in a silly place when I initially built the guitar. Now I've stripped it off, it doesn't look quite as bad, so I'm relatively happy with that, but I want to get it a little bit better if I can. So the first thing I'm going to do is just drill out the plug that I put in there. And if I remember rightly, this was just a bit of matchstick or maybe a cocktail stick, but because it's end grain, it's a lot darker than the surrounding wood. So I'm going to drill this out with a 2mm drill bit to start with. I don't need to go in too deep because I'm not actually going to fill this with a bit of wood because it's such a small hole. I'm going to try and do it with some glue and sawdust and hope that that will give us the result we need. So to get my sawdust, I'm just literally going to do a bit of sanding on the headstock. Make sure I've got an exact match. And instead of using the normal tight bond I'm going to use some of this Gorilla Wood glue because it's actually a white colour rather than the yellow that Type Bond is, and I'm hoping that the lighter colour of the glue will make it a bit more of a match. Okay, so I'll probably need to leave that for a couple of hours now just to set up so we can sand it back. In the end, I've left this drying overnight. It was very cold in the workshop yesterday, so I decided to call it a day. So I'm just going to give this a quick sand down and see what we've got. If anything, it looks a little bit lighter than the surrounding wood. And I think you can see there that it is. For me, that's not actually a massive problem. I'd much rather have it lighter than darker, because if I need to, I could always kind of drop stain that a little bit and just make it stand out a little less. So that's good, happy with that. So then we need to move on and get this sorted out as well. And the first thing I'm going to do is to re-drill the marker hole. So to that end, I'll eyeball this and it'll be about right. I'm just going to put an all marking there, and we can get this to the drill press. Okay, so that's the hole drilled out again, but there is still a little bit of excess in there. So I'm going to take a sharp chisel and I'm going to very gently just start paring some of that away. Last thing I want to do is jam my chisel into this fret. Okay, so with that done, we can get this neck turned over and we can turn our attention to the work that we need to do on the back. And to tackle the work on the back of the neck, I've just set it up in my little neck holding jig, such as it is. Now the main issue we've got is that, and I think that illustrates it quite well, there's a big hump in the back of the neck. And it's not because it's moved, it's not because it's bent, it's because I didn't carve it properly in the first place. So my primary task is to remove that hump and kind of reprofile the neck just to smooth that all in. I don't want to take too much material off the neck, because I do actually kind of like its beefiness, but it needs to be straight on the back. It never felt bad to play, but it just looked really weird. And you could visibly see the hump if you looked at it, so I want to fix that. The secondary task I want to do is just make this transition into the headstock better. I thought I understood what I was doing at the time when I did it, but I clearly didn't. So I'm going to fix that up, and I'm going to fix this up first, because the depth I'm left with once I've put this proper transition in will actually determine a lot of the work that goes on with the back of the neck. If I straightened this out and then attempted to do this bit, I'd probably have to redo all of that again. So we won't go there. So there isn't a huge amount to take out of the back of this neck. It's more cosmetic than anything. So it's not time for the shinto. I know that'll disappoint some of you. I'm just going to use these Irisaka carving files to do it. So hopefully shouldn't take too much. Okay, so that's the headstock transition roughed in. It's looking a lot better now. So now what we need to do is kind of take a straight line from this low point here we've just created back to kind of around about here somewhere, and just take out that hump. Once we've created that straight line, we can then blend that into the rest of the carve, and we should be somewhere near where we need to be. So I'm just going to take a pencil and just mark out kind of where the worst of this is and concentrate on that area first of all. Okay, so probably 5 minutes work there with the rasp, and you can see that's looking an awful lot straighter. It's not absolutely spot on perfect, but we can refine that with sandpaper once we've got the initial shaping done. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change the camera angle and show you just kind of how flat the back of this neck is now. There's a stripe that's probably about 20 to 25 mil thick, so it shows you how much meat I've had to take out of there to get this as I need it. I'm really reluctant to go any further with this with the rasps, because obviously this skunk stripe is only ever going to be so thick, and I don't want to get to the point where I could be going through it. I don't think I'm anywhere near, but it's an awful long time since I made this neck, so I can't say for certain. And I don't know how well you'll pick this up in the camera shot, but the kind of flat spot on the back of the neck sort of runs from there to about there. So yeah, about 18, 19 mil wide. So what I need to do now is just blend this in with the profile of the neck. I probably want about the thickness of the skunk stripe as a relatively flattish bit on the back. I don't want it kind of curved all over the place. So I'll just start to kind of work that down with the rasps. Until we get it somewhere near where we want it. Okay, so that's the roughing in work done with the files. I've got it pretty close to how I want it. Feels quite nice, but it is still kind of faceted in one or two little places. So next up, I'm going to take a 80 grit pad, and initially at least I'll put it on a block, and we'll just work this closer to how we want it. And then we'll take it off the block just to blend in all these little curves and radiuses. Okay, so with that done now, we just need to work our way through the grits until we've got a finished ready surface. So with all that done, the last job is that we just need to reinstall the dot marker, and I've got kind of a little bit of black plastic rod that I'm going to glue in there to do that. So I'll bring you in a little bit closer and we can just get this finished off. Okay, so we just need to get this dot glued in now. You might just be able to see there's a little bit of a line there where we've glued that patch in, but other than that it's looking very good. So I'm just going to take this bit of black rod and I'm going to glue the whole thing in, and then we can trim it down later. I'm just going to stick this in with a bit of super glue. Now I think I actually drilled right the way through to the truss rod in the original build. That isn't something that's happened doing this repair, but it does make it kind of a little bit harder to do, in so much as there's nothing to glue the bottom of the marker to. So we're just going to have to hope that we can get enough glue surface onto the side. Okay, we'll leave that to set up for a little bit, then trim it down. Okay, so that's it reinstalled, and it looks okay from a distance, but you might just be able to see there's a bit of a margin around here where the hole is oversized. I'm not going to try and fill that with sawdust and glue or anything to try and get a match. What I'm actually going to do is just fill that void up as best I can with a bit of super glue. And hopefully, once we get some lacquer on, that will kind of disappear. Okay, and there we have the finished marker. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. So I'm kind of really happy with that. And with that done, all the little repairs that we needed to do on the neck are now completed. So with the neck done, the next logical thing is to get the repairs and the modifications done to the body. However, I think this one's gone on long enough, so I'm going to leave that till next time. So as always, like if you've liked, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.